What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Jacked Ramsays, Danny Marang, Brandon Sprague, and special guest live from the road at Sea Hold himself, Casey Holdahl, checking in from the frigid tundra and the hotel in Denver. Casey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys for having me.
No, thank you.
Thanks for hopping on, man.
I've been harassing Dan about this for like a year now, so I feel like I owe some apologies or something.
For the Casey, he mentioned he was like, yeah, we might have so and so on and so and so on and Casey, and I was like, oh, and he goes, but I think we need to do Casey, and I go, oh, okay, and he goes, Casey might murder me if we go. Yes. And I was like, yeah, bring Casey on, let's go. It's cold as hell in Denver. Let's do this.
Exactly. Warm me up.
No, speaking of being warmed up, Casey is quite late in Denver right now where it is -10. We had a little bit of a late start because Casey's Uber driver decided to try to make him walk 400 feet in the negative weather, and Casey was not about that life, which, respectfully, if you've never been in the real cold, yeah. And this is your first real experience with the frigid cold. Like, you've done road trips to Toronto in January, but, like, the live negative weather, this is your first experience. Did you get the frozen tear ducts?
I walking to the Sam's. I didn't get the frozen tear ducts, but I had the frozen on my face
tears,
kind of like wiping them off. Like it'd be, they like sloughs off. It looks like your skin is kind of coming off or something like
because
that.
Because it is.
Yeah, because it is. But yeah, it actually I've been colder on the road before. I mean, it's never been colder, but like Toronto is right on a lake, so when it's like 10 degrees in Toronto and the wind is blowing, which it always is, it's pretty cold there. The only time I've ever turned around on a road trip was in Minneapolis. I was going to get dinner. I got like 3 blocks, and they have that squirrel cage in Minneapolis, which basically like you can walk around all of downtown for the most part without going outside.
Yeah. They figured it out that they're too damn cold.
But for some, I think they had closed some of the buildings where I was at. So like you couldn't go through all of them. So I ended up having to go outside, and I made it like 3 blocks, and I was like, I can't do this. Like I got to go back. I'm just gonna have to lump it at the hotel. So, and the other thing too, I was with Brooke, and Brooke is like, she does not do cold.
Brooke is cold when it's 70.
Exactly. So
which is funny, by the way.
-10. It's like it's going to be work to get her to walk out of the restaurant that we're in, let alone another 400 feet to get to the Uber driver who went to the wrong entrance. By the way, I put the right one down, and he went to the wrong one. And if I had messed up, I'll probably walk over and get him to drive us over. He was the one that messed up. I was not going to budge on that in -10. And I had to call like 3 different times.
Not walking the football field in that cold.
No, not happening.
Respectfully, you should not.
The funny thing is, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Brooke a cougar? Like, how do you live in Pullman, Washington for college and you can't do cold?
She was a younger lady back then. So, I think, we all
also, her blood alcohol content was probably slightly skewed.
That too, probably a little bit.
Listen, she's a kook. I think it comes with the territory. Like, it's an accepted medium as, it's a proper blood warming or thinning or thickening technique, right?
You would think.
Well, Casey, how's the road treating you guys right now? I know you lost 2-0, Casey. Like, just what's your assessment as being the guy on the road? You're with the team every day. What's your assessment so far on the roadie?
Not a great trip for sure. I think the combination of just how much time the team has been out before this trip, they end up winning games versus the Spurs and the Rockets, but don't play especially well in either one of those games. Have maybe their worst game of the year versus the Mavs. And then, you lose 2 to OKC, one in pretty heartbreaking fashion and the other in semi-heartbreaking fashion.
Near heartbreaking.
And so you go from feeling like 500 at a minimum, maybe 4-2, and heck, maybe 5-1 or 6-0 if we're really playing well, to now we got to win the toughest game on the trip in order to go 500. At the end of a trip, which is usually the hardest one, we've been out for 10, 11 days at this point. The weather's not obviously is what it is. You got guys now. I mean, Justice has got the ankle, and I'd be pretty surprised if he played versus the Nuggets. So, it's been a tough one. And particularly coming off having some pretty good trips this year and particularly playing well on the road. Yeah. I think that, and feeling like you maybe had a little momentum coming off that little homestand, to come out and have it kind of go the way that it's been. I think it's been a bit disheartening for guys. And, the other part too is just the notion that, it's near the holidays and we've been gone a lot, and this is kind of a thing I don't think people really consider a whole lot, but like these guys have families too, and they got the same errands we all got to do and the same expectations from their family that we all have. And the money helps, but like if you're not around to do those things, it can make it difficult. And I think guys, when things don't go especially well, all those things kind of start to feel more prominent than they would if you were playing well and winning games. And it's kind of funny. So when we were flying in yesterday, or before we left yesterday, knowing that the weather is coming into Portland, we were talking about the likelihood of getting into Portland Friday night when we were supposed to arrive. And, they're kind of being some concern. They're like, well, if it's freezing rain and it's Portland and we're not real good at dealing with this stuff, are we going to get back? And Dame's like, I don't know what y'all are doing, but I'm getting back to Portland. He's like, my kids are waking up on Christmas Eve morning and I'm going to be there. So I don't know what you guys are doing. I'm getting the heck out of Denver when that game is over.
The Adidas plane will get there.
Exactly. Yes. And I'm like, hey man, I'll sit in the luggage hold. Like I'll put my jacket on. Like get me home too. So it sounds like it's going to be okay. I'm hearing some good things on the forecast. But to answer your question, Brandon, it's been a bit of a rough one, I would say.
Yeah.
All right. The losses themselves, like we can dive into that, but you're obviously around the team and you can kind of see what's going on the floor. From watching this team this year at home every game and being around these guys versus this road trip, one of the things that stood out to me, particularly over the last two OKC games, and I think it started really in the Dallas game, is that you can see some guys are pretty frustrated with themselves. I think you've seen it from Ant. I think you've seen it from Dame. I think you've seen it from Josh. I think you've seen it from just about everybody over the last 3 or 4 games where, I mean, Ant was probably more pissed off the other day about a non-call than I've seen him maybe ever. Dame got teed up twice in back-to-back games at OKC. Jeremy, who normally says nothing, was campaigning for one. Justice also. Chauncey, losing, obviously boils this stuff a little bit. But does it feel like something's just like the gears aren't lining up and not meshing real well right now?
Yeah, it does feel that way to me, Dan. And you're right. Like I think guys are just frustrated that they're not playing as well as they feel like they should be. And again, particularly when you're away from home, it's like you feel like you should be accomplishing something. And when things aren't going especially well, and I agree. Like I feel like Ant in a lot of these games kind of getting off the slow starts, and you can kind of see it on him a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And, I think part of that is just having played so many games and been gone for so long. You didn't mention Josh as well. I mean, Josh is always kind of mad about stuff.
He's always kind of a red ass.
He got a technical in that Mavs game, and he was talking to I can't remember who gave it to him at halftime. And Fernando and I were walking back to our seats, and we just kind of stood there and listened to Josh basically being like, "You're really going to take money out of my pocket for that? Like that is of a level that you feel like was something that I need to be additionally punished for." And so I think everyone is just kind of feeling like a little raw right now. And that kind of happens again, like for everyone when you're on the road for a while. And again, then guys kind of start having some injuries, and you lose the first game to Oklahoma City, which you felt like should have won. And then the next game you shoot 9 free throws and they shoot 27. And so you're pissed off about that. I don't know if you guys noticed, but so I'm the only one that's out covering the team right now. And, I work for the team. So, that means something different sometimes. No quotes out of last night because I couldn't put anything out there that guys were telling me because I didn't want to get anyone fined. And guys were like, I want to talk. It was one of those games where guys were like, no, I want to get fined.
Well, I mean, like, Dame and Nurk both retweeted one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they did.
And I think they did that because, like,
they wanted to say something.
Put out there the stuff they wanted to talk about. Because I'm like, look, guys, like, I got your best interest in mind here, and
like you don't want that $25,000 fine. Yeah.
So, and especially during the holidays,
Listen, if they want to donate, I'll send them the Venmo. Okay.
Exactly. So when you lose in that fashion and you don't feel like you're necessarily getting a fair shake, and you've been gone for a while, and you played a lot of road games, and you're in one place for 4 days that no one really wants to be in, and again, like you're just not getting the results you feel like you should be getting, and you kind of keep having late game mistakes that are hurting your chances of winning games. Those are the kind of things that I think do wear on a team. And, and I don't want to give the impression that these guys are like beside themselves right now, because they're really not. Like in the locker room as well last night, like people were pissed off, But, you get on the plane, you brush it off, and, you feel okay about it. But I do feel like at this point, they're waiting for something to click right now, or just something to kind of to lock in. And I think particularly on the defensive end, they just can't seem to kind of grab what little success they were having earlier in the season. Like the zone just doesn't seem to be having the same pop it had earlier in the season.
Chauncey's not even going to it nearly as much.
And that's the other part too. It's like part of me is like, I feel like I'm not really using it a whole lot because I'm really trying to pay attention. And I'm not seeing it. And maybe they're changing it up to an extent where I just don't kind of notice it. But I agree. Like I feel like they're kind of not going to that as much as they were before. And I think it just kind of results in guys feeling a little crummy about things. So again, I think, if you're able to, I mean, heck, if you win the Denver game and you get it to 500, you come back on to home feeling
like, okay about it.
We didn't do what we wanted to do, but that we got our lick back from losing on the buzzer beater, and we got to 500 against a good Northwest Division team that's above us in the standings. But
you secure the split of the season series,
and exactly, and you get the split of the series. So and even that's a big ask, but they're going into this game with a day off.
Game 6 on day 10 after back-to-back basically buzzer beating losses in the 20th road game of the season in -10 at elevation. Am I missing anything?
That sounds about, and also with the specter of maybe or maybe not getting to go home that night,
and probably without Justice too,
and probably without, and almost very, very much a possibility without Justice.
Listen, his leg turned into an L. Like,
yeah,
I don't expect him to play.
Yeah, you don't see guys typically getting carried off by the trainers on one arm and then playing the next game. No. So.
Casey, the Oklahoma City thing, by the way, I've been in that city 4 times. I've been on record before. I'll say it for you. It sucks. I hate it there. The last time I was there, I was like, why did I get back here again? How did this happen in my life?
Why does this exist?
Yeah. The only thing I'll say about Oklahoma City is the people there are nice. Like, I really want to make it known that, yes, it's not my kind of city. There's not a whole lot going on. But the people that you meet in the arena are nice. Yeah. And the woman who does their commissary there is a firecracker. Like, she busts chops to the nth degree. She's hilarious.
Sure.
She cracked something about Brooke about getting fat, like, and
Jesus.
Which she I mean, it busted her up. Like, there are very good people who work in that works, and I want to shout them out too for being so gracious when Dame passed the record. Like,
they did do a great job with it.
I did not expect that. I like to think that we in Portland would be as gracious about it if the shoe was on the other foot.
I don't know if we would do that to a franchise that we.
No, I think we would.
Dame did just destroy that franchise. Like,
their GM chose to destroy that franchise. Let's be clear here. Dame destroyed it, and then he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to keep destroying it. I'm just going to keep adding on to what you did to us."
But to recognize Dame, considering what Dame did to that franchise just a couple of years ago, is more than I think above asking price of an NBA franchise.
Yeah. I mean, I got a DM from a former player who, on a team that we recently played, who was basically like, are these guys going to get tribute videos when they come back? Because I didn't get a tribute video when I came back. And if these guys get one, I'm going to be plenty pissed off about it. And I was like, no, we're not going to do that. But so the idea being that, like, at times we haven't even celebrated the guys who have come back who were important players in our history. And so for another team to be like, this is a guy who's been pretty hard on us throughout the years, for not only for the organization to do it is great, but I would kind of expect that for the fans to cheer it and to not boo and to generally like
to stand up and give them the salute.
Exactly.
For a lifetime achievement.
Cool. And then did you guys read Barry Trammell's column?
No, I didn't see it.
So basically, he wrote a whole column that was like, you guys should love Damian Lillard because this is the guy that is doing the thing that we would hope our guys will do when their time comes.
Yep.
And he's swimming against the tide, and he does all these things, and everyone's always in his ear about he should be doing something else, and he's never done it. And for an organization like Oklahoma City, in a somewhat similar situation with a guy like SGA, this is the kind of guy who you should be supporting and respecting because he's done it the right way, which I thought, again, was a pretty nice thing to write, particularly from the guy, Mr. Unreliable
mostly
for
trashes the guys.
So,
Mr. Unreliable to KD, and it was the guy who Russ did not answer questions for what, 4 years.
Yeah, up to including that playoff series that I was at, that became like a real thing in
Barry
that
Trammell, the Oklahoman
series.
Yeah, Russ. Next.
Yeah. So again, it's, and I also think too, like, and this is probably, I don't think the team is thinking about this, but I know that we've been thinking about it, that like, so with Dame's whole thing, like that, the set of circumstances probably couldn't have been worse. Like from it being on the road to you end up losing to the way you lost. Like even like I was talking to our equipment guy, he was like, the fact that we were able to get the ball from that game after they won on a buzzer beater took basically an act of faith in God for us to be able to grab that ball,
because it normally would go.
They want to keep it,
yeah.
like, and so basically it couldn't have played out in any less of a kind of poetic fashion, which again, I think just kind of speaks to just kind of where this team is at right now, which is like, they're just not getting any, those breaks they were getting earlier on in the season, they are not getting now, and they're not getting them all at once and all at the same time.
This is maybe, go ahead, Brandon. Well, your mic's all weird. I don't know. It's got a weird fuzz to it. Interesting. Can you hear him, Casey?
No, I can't.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Brandon.
Yeah, and it did that thing where it sounds like everyone's talking at once.
And then it completely went out. It might be Zoom acting up. Might need to be.
I guarantee it's me. it's me, for sure.
What about now?
There you are.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I sidetracked my question by commenting on Oklahoma City. So you kind of touched on it there, Casey. Like, he breaks the record. I just, what threw me off about it was just very un-Dame-like. I'm not used to Dame having a moment that is, I don't want to say ruined because it's such an achievement, but like a free throw, not a logo three. You know what I mean? Not a game-winning shot.
It just didn't lock in. I think It
didn't register the same way.
That's a very good point, Brandon, because it much of his career has been about like the right thing happening
poignant
at the right
moments.
Time. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And to go from like kind of that being the story of his career to reaching this big milestone and then it going the exact opposite way. Again, it's just, you're going to get some of those at a certain point in time, but it's like, could we at least just gotten one thing that worked out? Like, could we have won the game, or could have been at home and we lost, or could, like any number of that could have been on a 3 or a 2 or just not a free throw, like anything. So, and I think that kind of, again, that's kind of a decent encapsulation of this trip, because it's like, yeah, is it still a good thing? I mean, like, you won 2 games and you could get to 500. That'd still be pretty good, but it's just not the thing
it feels
that you
weird.
were hoping it was going to be.
Maybe this is unfair, but one of the things that I've been wondering that maybe this is, I don't want to say it's impacting the team, but this thing that's been hanging over them for a month or longer is the return of Gary Payton II. And that defensive need and that juice. Could his return, possibly speculative, in the next week or so, could that be something that helps right the disjointedness? Because they need a firm kick in the ass. Yeah. I think we all kind of agree. And I think Gary's the kind of guy, his personality, his play style, to maybe be that guy. Because in the ebb and flow of 82 games, and crazy enough, we're at 32 right now. We're almost halfway already. After tomorrow night, the Blazers will have played 20 of their 41 road games, which is absolutely insane to have half your road games played by Christmas. But do you think Gary's return or pending return, is that enough to kind of kick it back into what things felt like a couple weeks ago?
I think it could be, and I think that's the kind of thing that they need to happen in order to have an opportunity to at least shake that off. And that's not to say that's necessarily going to play that way, but yeah, I do think the idea that, like, if there's something out there that you feel like could help you or could change the way that you play, and you're kind of waiting on that, I do think there's a certain level of it does shake you a little bit out of whatever it is you're doing. And so I think you'd even take away like the actual skill portion of it. The idea that, like, yes, could they use a defender right now? Absolutely, they could. I mean, that last game, it's like, yeah, who's going to end up on SGA at the end of a game if everyone's healthy? It's like, it's a pretty good chance it might be Gary. Same with the loss to Denver. Who's gonna who's going to be on Jamal Murray? Yeah, probably Gary, or at least a guy, another option to have. And so I think that when you have something like that out there, even if it's not necessarily like this is going to fix our defense, from a locker room perspective and from an on-court perspective, I think the guys look at that and they're like, yeah, like this could be something that's going to help us. This will at least help us play a different way. It'll mix things up a little bit, and it hasn't been stagnant this year because guys have kind of been in and out. Dame's in and out of the lineup from time to time. Guys have had injuries. Nurk kind of in and out. Jeremy's missed a couple games here and there as well.
You've had 13 guys active for most of the year.
So it's not exactly like, they're kind of stuck in a rut. In fact, I would say they're not. But it just having something that changes the dynamic, I think helps a lot. And also too, like outside of like a skill thing, Gary is a guy in the locker room that I think people respect and they like, and he's got a great way about him. But until you're playing, like you can't really bring it. Like it's one of those things about the NBA where it's like, if you're not playing, you got to just kind of keep your mouth shut. Like you can pipe in here and there, but like
we call this the Festus Ezeli.
Exactly. Like it's one of those things where it's like, you gotta, you unless your boots are on the ground, like, I don't want to hear you talking about how the MREs taste bad. Like, like
I'm going to need your pogue ass back at the base to go ahead and just chill for a bit.
So I do feel like when he's able to come back, hopefully it's sometime soon, that will at least give them an opportunity to not reset so much, but just kind of mix it up a little bit, both on the court and in the locker.
That juice.
Yeah.
Casey, things you've observed from the start of the season to this point, just watching Dame and Ant, right? Ant gets the contract. He's the dude. It's Dame, it's Ant, it's the backcourt. What have kind of been your 30,000-foot observations from afar the entire way through seeing those two guys so far?
I think it's looked pretty good. I do feel like Ant is still kind of figuring out kind of how he fits into that thing. And I think part of that is just because there is some overlap between kind of what the two of those guys do. I think part of that is a bit of a reverence that Ant probably has for Dame and really wanting to kind of make sure that he's not kind of stepping on his toes a little bit, though that's not a concern. I mean, they have such a great relationship and, that they want success for the team. So it's not like I need my shots or you need your shots. And I mean, obviously Dame having split a backcourt with CJ for all those years, like that's a lot more responsibility to make sure that everyone's kind of getting theirs than it is with Ant. So, I think it's worked out pretty well. I do feel like, particularly when you got Dame and Ant and you're starting Josh, you're always kind of starting off from a little bit of a size deficiency, which I think we've seen from time to time can be problematic. As some teams have, the good offensive rebounding teams have offensive rebounded well against Portland. And that's even with Josh being absolutely dominant
the best
on the boards.
Under 6'6" rebounder in the NBA,
the best,
bar none.
Best guard NBA rebounder for sure. And so, like they're able to make it work. But I feel like that's something where, it's not exactly kind of what the ideal situation. And I think as Dame and Ant kind of get a better rhythm together offensively, I think that kind of makes up for that a little bit. I also feel like too that kind of some of the playmaking that Ant really seemed to make progress on last year has, when you get Dame back, you kind of just take a step back because, you got another guy out there. And I feel like that's something that, if he could get back to a little more of that, it would probably behoove everybody. So I think it's worked out pretty well. I think that there's definitely been growing pains. And I think that, again, being able to insert a guy like Gary into a lineup where you have those two guys and can kind of play a different way and have someone else checking some of those guys on the perimeter, I think that probably helps that situation as well. So it's been good, but I think there's definitely some room for growth.
Got a couple questions that came in, and I thought that this was pretty poignant and it'll kind of lead us into our next spot. This is from @Keegan Spendlove. He goes, do we all just need to collect a breath and be realistic about where this team is? I think for the season, if you told me they were 17-15 at this point, I wouldn't be mad. A lot of frustration is from losing some games that they could win overall, but it's not surprising. If I told you at 32 games that they would be 17-15, and I told you Dame was going to miss, 15 games?
Something like that, yeah, a couple weeks.
I think it was 12 to 15, something like that. And that they were 2 games over 500 with that schedule, what would you say?
I feel pretty good about it. I do think, though, that I think it's incredibly fair to have your expectations change when the team plays better. Like I agree with the notion of it. And yeah, like I would not have counted them at 17 and 15 right now. I in my initial count, I probably had them under 500 at this point. So, I do feel like, yeah, they've done some really good things. They have a lot of reason to be happy with where they're at, particularly because they haven't played especially well lately. So I feel like, there's definitely some ability to, if they're able to kind of catch a streak a little bit, that they can maybe kind of push and do something. But yeah, like generally, I would not have expected them to play this well. Obviously, to have this record at least. Obviously, the folks in Vegas would not have picked that as well. And I generally tend to pay attention to what they talk about things, because I know that they have intel that is good and better than what most of us have. So I do feel like, I don't feel like there's a ton of animosity or like frustration among fans right now. I mean, I know there's some, and on a night-to-night basis, you would expect it. You lose games that you feel like you shouldn't lose.
Losing 2 to OKC amplifies certainly.
Yeah, exactly. You shouldn't have lost 2 to OKC. I mean, period. Like that
19 and 13 looks a lot better than 17 and 15.
Exactly. You should not have lost both those games to Oklahoma City. And I think after you drop the first one, you're like, oh no, we'll get the second one. Like, we're gonna get that next one. And so the fact that they didn't, like, that's cause for people to be upset. Like it just is. And I don't think people should, be, taking shots at guys or anything necessarily, but it's understandable why you would feel like, hey, like that was a missed opportunity. And for a team that is going to have to fight and scrap for everything, particularly going down the stretch this year, like you don't want to look back in December and be like, boy, if we had gotten one of those games in Oklahoma City, we'd be, in 4th or 5th rather than 7th or 8th. So while I agree that they are in a much better position than I would have expected right now, I also think it's still legitimate to look at things on a night-to-night basis and say, no, that should have gone better than that. And particularly when you lose the way that they have in some of these games, where it's like you just make a lot of mistakes at the end of the game. I mean, and Chauncey even mentioned in the post-game last night, he's like, we're up like 4 or 5 with 2 minutes to go. Like, we should win that game. Yeah. Like, period. Like, we made so many mistakes at the end that, yeah, should we have shot more than 9 free throws? Yeah, we should have. But we were still up in that game in crunch time, and we lost, and we shouldn't have. So, yeah. Like, that's the kind of thing where if people are upset about that, I mean, it's perfectly legitimate. It only makes sense that you would be upset about that. If you want a team to win and you have, again, like realistic expectations, winning one game in Oklahoma City is a very realistic expectation and doesn't happen, then yeah, I don't see any reason why people can't look at that and be like, no, I expect more from this team than that.
And the funny thing too, Casey, about that is if they were able to take care of both those games, they'd be in the 4 seed right now. Like, it's only a 2-game gap from where they are. The West it's got some good teams, but I don't know how truly difficult the West is. And I think that leaves some wiggle room for you to struggle a little bit and dig yourself out of a hole. I was at the last Denver game when I mean, I was drunk. I thought Dame won the game. I was going home happy. And Jamal Murray hits a hell of a shot on a great move. Since that game, I mean, they've taken off a little bit. They found themselves. Jokic is getting back in MVP form. Murray's starting to look like himself. I know it's the end of the road trip. There's no guarantees that a win is coming. What you saw in that last game and the way it was kind of going felt like Portland had it. They were up double digits in it. Denver comes back. What did you like that they did in that game they can bring back? And then what worries you that you say you got to correct that from what they did in the last matchup to allow Denver to come back and take that game?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, one, if I recall, they kept Jokic generally in line. Like, I don't feel like he had a huge game.
Game one, they kept Jokic.
Game one, they did. Game two in Portland, he
ate
him alive. Yeah,
he did. Okay, so yeah. I was getting it mixed up because in my head I was like,
Nurk played him really well, but he just hit shot after shot.
Has some problems, and I one of the things I feel like I remember from at least one of the 2 games in Denver was like that was a really good Nurk game.
It was, and that was the game. That was the game. Jokic ended up having like 35 and 12, but Nurk had his best game of the year.
Nurk had like 20, 22 and 11 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. It's like if you're gonna have success against a team like Denver, Nurk has to play well.
Yeah.
So like one, you hope he's able to play. I assume he is going to play. And 2, you hope to get something similar from him as you got in one of those 2 games. And I think, too, they generally, I think until the 4th quarter, did a pretty good job on Murray as well. So I think, again, like basically you need to take the first 3 quarters of that game and extend
Bottle it up.
Exactly. And again, I feel like that has been kind of a theme for this team in their losses this year, which is like, and I think I wrote this at one point in time, that like, if it was a 46-minute game, Blazers are straight. Like,
which is
they'd have
weird
like
because the fourth
wins.
quarter is like one of their best net rating
Right.
quarters.
But it seems like there's like those last 2 minutes in a lot of the games they end up losing, just everything goes the wrong way. And, you had, you have Jeremy hit the shot, in Phoenix to win that game. And, you have Ant hits the hook shot
over McHale.
over McHale. So you feel like you got some luck or things went your way a few times there. And it just feels like in late game situations, it hasn't gone your way. And so Brandon, to your point, I really feel like they really need to, whatever it takes to make sure that like you are on your P's and Q's in like the last 5 minutes of the game. And if you're up, you're not letting them go on like a 7-0 run to tie the game or to get within 1. Those are the kind of things for me where like, I don't know if it's even execution. It's just like, you can't dribble your ball, the ball off your foot and have Lou Dort get a dunk. Those are the kind of things.
You can't have Josh and Dame run into each other.
You can't have an inbounds pass that
get tipped
and doesn't realize there's someone behind him. Like, again, it's just these small, like maybe even loss of focus things. And I don't even know if I would call it that, but just whatever the thing is that results in kind of dumb mistakes that aren't forced. Getting rid of whatever those things are is what they need to do in order to have success, particularly against the good teams that are always going to charge on you. And I would say that's, Brandon, to your point about kind of there being no team in the West this year that has kind of taken that step forward. I completely agree. And one, I think that's one of the reasons why when fans get upset about things, it's like, well, yeah, if there was like 3 teams that were obviously better than everyone else in the West, then yeah, losing games here and there probably doesn't matter all that much because we're not on their level. But when there's no team that does that, I think fans are like, well, in theory, that could be us. Yeah. So I'm going to take it a bit harder when it doesn't go that direction. And, I guess the other part too there is that, you kind of expect that at some point in time, you're going to get some of those games against the teams that you play pretty close, but then end up losing those games too. And they just haven't got there yet. So I think that, again, that's kind of what you need to do better is just the small things initially. And then if you still lose the game, okay, but if we're going to lose games, it shouldn't be because we're having unforced turnovers in the last 30 seconds that basically take away possessions that result in.
You're not even getting the opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's actually been kind of the string is that they're in a lot of these losses lately. You take the Dallas one, shoot that one into the sun. That game got sideways very quickly. But in some of these other close games, there have been one of the markers for me is that it's not the failure to execute. It's not executing at all because of Ant deflecting a pass and it going out of bounds and turning the ball over. It's Dame driving and looking to swing it and throwing it into the third row because somebody's not on the wing. They've already gone in the corner or Dame didn't read something. It's Josh running into Dame. It's not secure, like letting OKC get multiple offensive rebounds when you get the stop twice. It's not that they're not hitting a shot or a pass gets deflected or something that an opponent is doing to them. It's taking a shotgun to their own foot for a lot of these and before they even get to those points.
Yeah, was it the Denver game where they didn't even get a shot at the end because Justice tried to kind of loft.
It was like 0.9 left, and they tried to do a loft play.
And I remember I asked Chauncey, I was like, "Well, what'd you think about the execution?" He's like, "We turned the ball over. What do you think I felt about the execution?" He's like, "Fair point." But again,
that was the one where I tried to give him the silver lining with Nurk having a good game.
Exactly. Like we were trying to do the thing where it's like, hey,
let's see if we can get Chauncey to be happy about this at all. That man was not having it.
Yeah.
Former pro athlete happy about a loss. Good idea.
Yeah. So exactly. It's the point where it's like, yeah, you never want to lose, but if you lose because you didn't do something you should have done, then okay. If you don't even have the opportunity to do that thing, then you feel like you're spinning your wheels. And those are the ones that I think guys get bothered by the most.
What question, Casey, are you tired of answering?
I mean, I'm to the point now where like I kind of just pick and choose what questions I'm answering. And I felt like earlier in my career, it was like I felt like I needed to be more like I needed to answer more questions, and I was much more argumentative than anyways. So like it just kind of fed into that.
I haven't got past that stage.
I mean, in general, I just don't like it. The most general question I don't like is more just like the who could we trade for? Yeah. That's always the one where it's like, I mean, I don't know. Like, probably no one.
Let me run down the hall real quick and ask Joe.
Casey, yeah, exactly. Casey, and it's like, look, like I know people love trades, like, and our fans are great, and like they're active and they want to know what's going on. So like, so that's the part for me too, where it's like, as I've gotten older, while I maybe don't engage as much, I'm also like, I don't mind as much either, because like I know that it's a gift to have people be interested in what you have to say about things. So
yes,
so I try not to like get too frustrated about it. And it's not so much the questions for me as much as like some of the comparisons where it's like, man, like, do we have to go there right away? Like,
you mean like calling Shaedon Sharpe baby Kobe?
Yeah, or well, I mean, no, that's great. When it's positive, I love it. It's more just like,
who does that? Why would anybody do that?
Like, you definitely not like Festus Ezeli. It's like, come on, man. Like, we give the guy a little bit of a break here. Like, we just let him be. And
can we get to the point where the locker room turns on him first?
And the thing too is like our fans are so engaged, and therefore have such good memories of things.
The little things they remember, man.
Our fans are more able to kind of recall things that happened in the past and be like, I see a corollary there. And it's like, yeah, that was like 12 years ago.
Heaven forbid somebody gets stuck in an elevator again.
Yeah. So I like, those are kind of the things for me, Brandon, where it's more just like, all right, can we just kind of move past this a little bit? But I also, as I get older too, like, I question my own assumptions about those things now more than I ever did too. And I'm so like with the Dame thing, I was like, is that just being a Blazer fan? Like, is that just what we live our lives by? Is that knowing that even when good things happen, it's also going to be with a twinge of kind of crappy things happening? Like, maybe, like, I try not to view things that way.
Right.
But I also, again, I try to leave it open a little bit more than I did when I was a younger man who felt like he actually knew what was going on.
That's what's funny, Casey, is like, I had this moment the other day. So we did a live watch party. Danny was busy. And so it was just me, and I had, fans were watching the game. We're watching it together. And I had like 4 people were like, hey, what's the latest you've heard on trades? And like, I'm just kind of like internally, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, dude, I'm not a general manager. What do you want me to tell you? I think I said everything you've heard, I've heard. Vanderbilt, whatever, Nerlens Noel, I don't even remember who it was. And then it's funny because I'm like rolling my eyes, and the next night I'm watching the NBA, and I'm watching somebody, and I remember thinking, God, I'd love to have him in Portland. Yeah. What would it take? And I'm like, I'm playing this.
Like, that's the guy we could use right there.
Yeah, I'm like, he would be perfect here. Like, what would that take?
It's going to cost 8 draft picks, but I don't know. I mean, it sure help this team out.
Right.
I started thinking about when you said the deep recall. I think it was like year 2, maybe year 3, when will the Blazers find their point guard of the future, and like the Steve Blake rumors finally went away of like Dame's career. Like that's the recall stuff that people just could not let go of.
Sure.
We're 32 games in, basically halfway point here within 2 weeks. By the time we get into the new year, we're essentially at the halfway point.
God, is that really?
32 games right now.
32,
yeah.
9 more. Man. 9 more, and you're
at
there.
The first week of January, you're
there's
halfway.
Like another 3.5 months of the season to go after that point. Like in mid-April.
Well, we do basically have a 2-week break now. It's like 11 days for All-Star. Yeah. So like guys can actually go somewhere and chill and find somewhere warm and be somewhere outside of Utah.
Which also too, like it bums me out so much when I remember that like 8 years ago the season started like on Halloween instead of like October 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, boy, those were the days when you had another 3 weeks off season, and now it's like, nope, that's gone.
They're pushing it, but where I want to go with this is like, what is one or two like tangible things that you know about this team right now, and what's the one thing that you want to know by the time we get to the end of this like next 2-3 weeks?
I'll start with what I want to know is I want to know that is there any chance whatsoever of this team getting back to being an average defense? Like as currently constructed, can they be a middle of the road NBA defense from an efficiency standpoint? The start of the season made it seem like, hey, maybe they can be. And then, it's obviously fallen off since then. So for me, before I'm ready to say that like this roster just is going to have to win things with offense, like I'd like to know that for sure. Yeah. And I feel like I don't know that just yet, which is kind of a good thing. Like it's better than just being like, no, I know these guys don't have it on the defensive end.
I want to jump in real quick because people have heard this from me, and I want them to hear from somebody else. How beat up has this team been the last couple of weeks?
Pretty beat up. I mean, so Josh, I think as you mentioned, Dan, like that ankle, I couldn't believe that he ended up playing when he played. Like
for a week.
I saw him. They were working on that ankle pregame for like an hour, and I was like, "There's no way this guy's gonna go." And then he missed that one game, and I think he was even like, "Hey, like I can go tonight if you really need me, I think I can get out there."
And that was Utah, I think, right?
I think so. And Chauncey was like, "Dude,
no,
like I saw you. Walk.
We all saw you tried to walk.
I can't put you out there. Like it would be wrong of me to do that as a human being."
Mm-hmm.
I think that Ant has had some issues as well that he's been playing through. Both Nurk and Drew have had kind of knocks here and there.
Justice and Jeremy.
Justice now he's had things here and there, and I would expect that I would imagine he's going to miss some games with that ankle sprain. Hopefully not too many, and the schedule does lighten up here. They play twice next week. So
yeah, they do get a nice break for Christmas. So
right, though, if it's a bad enough sprain to wear a boot out of a game, then we'll see. So it's they have and then you have Gary. You haven't seen Gary yet. So and Keon too. Like Keon in that run up to the start of the season was looking really good, and I feel like it's looked really good since he's come back.
Yeah,
and has been a guy where you've seen him play in the last couple of games, and it's like, man, they've been missing that a little bit, particularly when
the athletic juice.
Exactly, and kind of when Shaedon doesn't have it going, kind of offensively, and you're not willing to kind of roll with some of the defensive issues at that point, like to be able to get Keon out there to kind of flip that a little bit, I think has been great, and really kind of reminds you like why guys were so stoked on Keon to start the season. Mm-hmm. The fact that he missed a month, that's kind of a big deal for a team that, they're probably still a little bit thin in terms of bench production, and we're down to one guard or two guards for a couple weeks there when Dame was still out. So
and we're missing Nasir for another 3 weeks.
Talk about Nas, exactly. Yeah. Who looked like he was
turning a corner and rounding into it.
A production guy for this team. So every team gets injuries. It does happen. But now that I've just kind of mentioned it again there, it's actually been worse than I kind of feel like I've been giving it credit for a little bit. So there's that. So I guess one of the things I would like to see is the team to get healthy. Yeah. And I'd like to see them be a little more, and I think, Dan, you kind of talked about this a little bit on Twitter last night. I would like to see them be a little more regimented in their offense. And, I think, as Dame has kind of become accustomed to playing with these guys, I think he's initially maybe breaking stuff off a little bit earlier and kind of trying to get his zone from time to time. So, which obviously he's very capable of doing, so it doesn't bother you at all. But I would like to see a little more cohesion on the offensive end. And I would like to see guys stop passing up 3-pointers. Like I feel like there was like 4 instances in the second game versus OKC where I was like, take it.
Yeah.
Because you end up swinging it and it ends up being a contested 3-pointer anyways. And it's like it defeats the purpose. So,
I asked him about it. Okay.
And I mean, Josh is one of those guys. He's even said it. Like
Josh is the habitual offender.
Said like, when we're talking, it was after the Miami game, which obviously he wins on the 3-pointer, and Josh is like, we were kind of pitching it to him as, you're a guy who you do all the dirty work and you don't need shots, and he's like, well, I would like to take more shots actually, and then the next day Chauncey being like, well, I've been trying to get the guy to take more shots and he just won't do it sometimes, but I feel like that's been the case with a couple guys. So, and just situational. And I know part of that is I know that Chauncey wants him to play a little bit different and wants him to not have long stretches where they don't kind of get into the paint. And, you see a team like Oklahoma City that doesn't have the talent you do, but gets into the paint over and over and over and over again and is able to find success with it. Like, you understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But I would like to see guys stop passing up what I would say are good 3-point shots.
Casey, I know this might be ridiculous for some guys in the league, but you've been around this franchise long enough. I think you can pick this up. How much does schedule play into psyche of players or teams? Like, I'm looking at this schedule, and we mentioned this road trip, 6 games, 10 days, freezing cold temperatures, flying back in dicey conditions. You played an ton of road games. You come back for a game against Charlotte after Denver. You're hoping the team can right some wrongs in that game, given what Charlotte's been. And then it's like road game, home game, road. So I'm more just like, how much peekaboo do players play where they kind of look at it, and whether that's, hey, it's Bucks, it's Warriors, it's, upper echelon, or it's road, home, road. Like, how much the psyche gets involved when scheduling, when players look at schedules?
I do think that it is more about where the game is at and less about who the opponent is. But they do think about that a lot. So like the thing that, and particularly this season. So I've said this a couple of times and I'll say it again. I'm usually of the opinion that for the most part, like an NBA schedule is about the same. You play 41 and 41. You can have bad stretches and good stretches, but I'm not a big believer in like NBA strength of schedule stuff. If you're in a conference, you basically play the same teams the same amount of times as everyone else does. And yes, there's rest advantage and things like that, but I just don't buy into it all that much, except for this season. This schedule is trash. Like, it is, the beginning of the schedule is so freaking bad. To have as many 6-game trips as the team has this year compared to one other team having one and most teams having none, having multiple 6-game trips within a month span. When they won the game versus Denver or versus Utah in Utah, and then the next day played, was it the Clippers at home?
Yes, and then went back down to LA.
Whatever it was, having a game second night of back-to-back after a road trip. I remember Justice specifically was like, I cannot believe that we're playing tomorrow. It's like, it is astonishing to me that we're playing tomorrow.
And then you went back out on the road again.
Yeah, and then we're there for 2 days and right back out. And that's, Brandon, like, that's the kind of stuff that I think players pay attention to and that bothers them and has an effect on your play. I mean, opponents, you catch guys at the right time sometimes. You never know who's going to be in and out of a game because of injuries, particularly nowadays with load management. Like, you might be looking at like, boy, yeah, we're going to play the Bucks, but it's like, yeah, we're going to play the Bucks and they're going to say Giannis that night. So it's like, I feel like teams typically feel like, regardless of the opponent, that they're going to win every night. What they don't feel like is that they're necessarily coming into every game with a fair shake when they've been on the road for, 13 of 16 games and have played 6 games in 8 nights. Like, those are the ones that players, I think, really do notice and starts to wear on them a bit. And we've had, again, a lot of those to start the season, and you hope it's going to come back to the team in the second half of the season. But it's been a tough one. And even, just as a person, on the fringes who's not playing, like, you definitely feel it more both in your work and kind of in your interactions back home as well. And
you're not running 3 miles a night.
And again, and I'm not doing that. And, obviously the pay is nice and it helps things kind of smooth out sometimes, but not always. And not particularly like, if your wife and kids are back home and they're upset that they haven't seen you in a while, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Like, that's still like,
that strain is still there.
That's tough. Yeah. Like, and again, and it's just one other thing. And that's never going to be the difference between a team winning or losing, but it is the difference between like coming out and playing your absolute best on the second night of a back-to-back versus coming out and feeling like, man, I just don't know if I got it tonight. So, I mean, they do start to feel it after a while, and typically you don't feel it kind of till later on in the season. They're feeling it now. I feel in my heart that this team needs a break. Like, they need to get home. And I said that on the podcast the other day. I was like, maybe that's me projecting a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, these guys need to sleep in their own beds for a little bit of time and just kind of slough this road stench off of them a little bit.
Listen, the Four Seasons is nice, but it's not that custom bed.
And again, it's like, and during, it's, you know, we weren't home for the holiday season. Like, there's nothing basically you could have done.
No, you guys were in New York for Thanksgiving.
We're in New York, and then, you know, we're home for a little bit. And
you're
then
home for a day here, 2 days.
10 days, and you get back on New Year's or Christmas Eve. So it's like, again, these are kind of small, dumb things, but like they do matter. And they're the parts of the job too, where I think generally NBA players feel very blessed to be able to do what they do. But those are the times where you're like, man, this sucks right now. And so, and again, if you're feeling like things aren't going exactly the way you want them to, and also like kid wants to know why you haven't been home lately. Like wife wants to know why you've kind of had to be gone so much. Like it all plays a little bit of a role. And it's the death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing.
I'm going to add on to the question I asked you earlier. What's the thing that you've seen so far in the first half and moving into the second half of the season? I know we're 2 weeks away from it. What's the thing in the second half of the season really that you're hoping to come out of this as a more than just this team this year? If you're put on your GM hat, now I'm not talking trades or anything like that. What is the thing you hope to take out of this season?
Well, I guess the one GM hat thing I would say is like, if you could get Jeremy locked down, you know,
which is available here, I believe, January 16th.
Yeah,
if I remember the date right, that's when he's eligible for his 4-year.
If I was going to pick any GME thing, I wouldn't pick trades. I'd be like, if you get that squared away, that'd be super. You know,
Because the way Joe phrased this when he was on with Brandon and I to start the season, I thought it was really interesting that the exact phrase that he used. I'm sure you'll remember this, Brandon. He talked about running the Dame timeline, the Ant timeline, Shaden timeline, and the word he used was reckless. We understand that it's reckless, but it's a risk that we're willing to take to see what we have. Mm-hmm. And it's both the admission of that and the risk that came with that. And the way I took that was that this is an evaluation year. Whatever you get out of this is a bonus. But how does Dame look with Ant? How does Jeremy look with Dame? How does Jeremy look with Ant? How does Shaden? Is he a year away, 2 years away, 3 years away? Which guys are building blocks? Which guys are guys that possibly we're looking at trading? Which guys are the right culture piece, but maybe they're not right in the timeline for us? And you look at that, like if you're taking something away from this season, like what's the thing you hope to be able to say, you know, about where this team is kind of going into the summer? Yeah. And I know it's a ways out.
No. But when you put it that way too, that's a very good question. Which I typically hate when people say that's a good question, because typically it's just a way to burn some time, but that is a very good question. I think kind of one of the first things you said there, like, feeling comfortable that a Dame and Ant backcourt is a sustainable NBA backcourt. I think that's probably number one for me. Like to know that, like, yeah, these guys can do it and can play at a level maybe in excess of what we got with Dame and CJ. And we rode that for a while and it didn't end up working out the way we wanted to, that we got semi-close, but not close enough, so really figuring out, like, is this a NBA starting backcourt long-term, or at least, for 3 seasons, whatever kind of Dame's timeline is. I think that's a good place to start. I think, this might be a little bit of a cop out, but I think what you have with Gary, like, and how does that work? And is a Dame, Ant, Gary kind of backcourt, does that work for you in the NBA? And is Gary able to play kind of bigger than he is in order to make that work? So I think that's something that I'd like to see as well. And I'm going to take this back a few questions ago, because I just thought of the question that I'm sick of getting a little bit. And I was kind of going back and forth with someone on Twitter about this the other day. And I think I've gone back and forth with Dan a little bit actually as well, is why don't they get another backup center? And my thing is always like, look, like it's the NBA in 2022. Like centers get played off the floor in crunch time anyways. Like, am I worried about a center rotation of Nurk and Drew just in terms of like, do you need another guy? No, I'm not. Like, you can make an argument like, do you need better guys? Sure, I guess you could always use better guys. So like, I get that piece of it. But the whole like, well, boy, they really need to go out and find another backup center. I'm always like, do they? Like, I look at the teams that are having success right now. Like, is it because they've got a traditional center rotation where you got a 7-footer playing or starting, and then you have another 6'11" guy who plays back to the basket coming in off the bench? It's like, no, you don't.
DeAndre Jordan is Jokic's backup.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the one, and actually,
no, but I mean, that's like he's
by the way,
he's tall, but that's about his only qualification right now.
Yeah. Give me Jared Allen though, if I had the option.
Yeah,
the two of those guys.
Yeah. Casey, I only have one more for you because I know you're on the road. It's been a long road trip for you.
That's Brandon's way of saying I want to go to bed.
No, I'm not going to bed at all. It's Friday night for me. I don't work tomorrow, man. I just don't have any more basketball questions.
Good.
I unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make it on the 26th, which is a bummer because I love those kind of moments. And, we'll go back to the Dame question, how weird it was that he didn't get the traditional Dame kind of thing in a moment with his scoring record. The stat crew on the television put up a cool thing. It was like a graphic, and it was Lillard, but the I was a number one. I hope you guys sell that as a T-shirt. I promise you it would sell out. Two, do you have any idea of what is in store for Monday's game against the Hornets when Dame comes back? And I'm assuming there's going to be a moment where we celebrate. Is there video? Is Clyde? Like, do you have any intel on that?
Yeah, there's going to be some on-court stuff. There is a video with various personalities from around the NBA, and they got quite a few guys, and not just kind of former Blazer guys too, like former players, former coaches as well, who kind of played an important role in Dame's career, which he mentioned multiple times when I talked to him. And
Tear Bear? We getting the Tear Bear?
We'll see.
Yeah, live from Bend, Oregon, baby. Let's go.
There's it's going to be fun. Like the Bosma and his crew have really been working on it. So from that perspective, it's great. Our marketing guys have really done a nice job this year with kind of coming up with those assets. Our PR staff, which has, kind of flipped over in the past year or so, are really more engaged kind of from a content perspective. And so they're kind of bringing ideas that kind of we maybe wouldn't have thought of before to the fore as well. So it's going to be a fun night. My only concern is that the Hornets seem to be playing a little bit better these days. So like, you really need to win that game.
Don't do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do it again. Take care of business.
Didn't they just get waxed by 30 by the Clippers?
Yeah, but did they just beat someone good though? Like
it's listen. The last 2 weeks of the NBA have been insane. The Celtics lost to the Magic twice in a week.
That's true.
The Knicks just won 8 in a row.
That was me saying yes. They have 8 wins, Brandon. You're right. Like again, I'm just so gun shy now after the OKC trip. That,
there's been those games.
Like I don't trust anything.
The Pacers just gave it to the Celtics. Like it's happening.
It's the Mason Plumlee revenge game too. You can never overlook it.
That's true.
Plum Dog returns.
Plum Dog coming out.
All right, Casey, we'll get you out of here on that, man. Appreciate you joining us. What are you working on? What do you got coming up? Let it plug all the podcasts and all the stuff. Yep.
Please listen and subscribe to the Blazers Balcony with myself and Brooke Olzendam. A new episode of The Briefcase, which I haven't come with as many episodes that I would have liked on this trip, but hoping to do a little bit better on that in the year 2023. Get that wherever you get your podcasts. Forward Center blog on trailblazers.com. And follow me on Instagram at Casey Holdahl, but don't follow me on Twitter at Hold because your life will be better for not following me.
And then episode 3 of The Trail just dropped, right?
Yes, it did. Also very good as well. Dan, we've talked about it a little bit before. Those guys are doing a great job. And shout out to Tristan and Tucker. Both those guys out here on the road shooting
endlessly.
Like every single time there's a meeting or an event or a guy's having coffee with someone, like
Tristan told me the hours
like,
of
I did like 5 shoots and 3 interviews, and it's like, dude, like so yeah, those guys have been doing a great job with that. Same with Garrett and Dane and Billy and my boss Aaron Grossman's really doing a phenomenal job with it. So definitely please check that out as well. I think that's something we could not have done previously, and has not only gotten great buy-in from the front office, but has also, like, the front office is pushed to be like, let's do more of this stuff, and which, is really, for someone in my position, it's always really heartening to hear that. So please watch the trail, watch it 3 times, send it to your friends, have them watch it 4 times. I would really appreciate it. And that's not even my project. Like, I just know how hard those guys have worked on that.
Yeah, no, from the art team, the creative team, the video team, the edit team, Tristan he's got 2 things with him at all times: his camera and his skateboard. Yeah, and that dude has been, the footage has been tremendous. Yeah.
Shout out to Tristan, turned 33 in Oklahoma City as well.
The pictures look tremendous.
Yeah, me, Brooke, and Tristan were sitting in the bar having a few drinks, and
he looked like he had a few.
Watched the game, and Dame sat with us for a while, and we had this really weird interaction with this dude that, like, I don't know if he was drunk or what, but, like, he just could, like, Dame even mentioned, he's like, this guy's been, like, following me around and just, like, standing next to me for, like, the last 15 minutes. And then he came to our table, did the exact same thing. He just, like, stood right in front of us, and Dame was like, he wasn't having it at that point. So like, I just kind of do the, all right, guys, let's let it go.
That's when Riley makes an appearance
and kind of, like, gets the shoulders back, and I'm like, all right, let's come get this guy before
it gets even weirder.
Before we end up on the news.
Yeah, and he ends up in the ICU. So,
all right, well, appreciate you, Casey. Everybody out there, the briefcase, Blazers balcony, the trail, and you can follow Casey across social media. Make sure you follow him, especially on Twitter, just because I know he likes to fan that flame. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Casey came in and really did the job for us tonight, so give him some love. My voice is still cooked. We will not do a show on Christmas. We are not doing a show on Christmas.
Good for you guys, man.
Why are you even saying that? Like, we're not doing a show on Christmas.
Because people have already asked. We are not doing a show on Sunday.
I don't care if they ask. I don't need the answer.
I'm just telling everybody.
What are we doing?
Go enjoy your Christmas.
I feel like you do this for yourself, really, because I'm not doing one.
Well, I mean, I might get the inkling.
That's a good to say, as someone who has throughout my career at times put the work too far ahead of kind of the personal thing, like, just to say it sometimes, like, in a public forum,
then you have to kind of stay true.
Exactly. You kind of you hold yourself to account by being like, we're not going to do this thing
because I might.
Exactly, because the push comes to shove, and like, I'm looking at the clock, everyone's asleep, it's Christmas night, it's 8:00.
I don't work Monday morning.
So wait. So Casey, me and you agree. Danny's just saying this because he's saying it to himself, basically.
Yeah, no, I 100% very good chance that Dan is just is convincing the devil on his shoulder that he's not going to do a show on Christmas.
No, I have to rest the throat. I got to keep the voice at least a little bit. You can find us on social media at Danny Marang, at Brandon Sprague, at Jacked Ramsays. You can email the show, jackedramsays@gmail.com. You can find Brandon every morning, except for the next couple of days. You can't find either one of us on the radio because we're not working. But normally you can find Brandon in the morning 6 to 9 with his co-host, Andy Dirt Johnson. You can find me noon to 3 with my co-host, Dusty Hara, both on 1080 The Fan. Other than that, thank you all. Have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. I don't know of any other holidays that are going on at this point. Whatever it is you celebrate or don't celebrate, stay safe, have fun, enjoy some Blazers basketball tomorrow night against the Nuggets. For the love of God, let's hope they win because it just makes everybody's life a whole lot easier. Other than that, we will come back probably on Monday. Monday's game is the Hornets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Monday is the Hornet game. Yeah.
I will probably do a post game show then because I've been delaying the post games because my voice is cooked. So, regardless, win, loss, draw, otherwise, I will probably do a post game show that night, and then we will kind of get back on track as we head into the year. Thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday season, and we will catch you all in a couple days. Take care. Bye.